Stay centered, stay present, tune in to the core truth of you at the very core, beneath the surface, beneath the layers of illusion, beneath the fears and insecurities and programs and templates and masks you may have put on. At your very core is an inner core of light, of bliss, of peace, of truth. Mastery is tuning into this core, letting the illusion peel away and letting the divine truth of you be revealed and be brought to the surface, receiving the higher light streaming in through cosmic downloads, through cosmic stargates downloaded from your team, receiving the higher ascension codes within physical form. This is not about ascending beyond physical reality. This is about bringing the higher light, bringing the new earth energies into this present moment, into this present time, unlocking the highest divine diamond light within you to change the world, to change the paradigm of the world around. When you change how you're showing up, the world around you indeed changes. And so it's time for all of us as light workers to hold the higher field of light, to amplify this highest divine timeline and trajectory, to claim the path of light as individuals and for humanity, because claiming this fully, with intention, with our focus, with our practices, with our vibration, our small group, claiming this highest timeline of light, chooses it for humanity too. So as tempting as it is to watch and look and get wrapped up in that duality game, pull back, tune into neutrality, tune into love, tune into the divine resonance within your open heart, where you're able to access source of all that is, the one mother, father, God, solar logos, Christ, light, embodying the highest divine truth of you, and knowing that this eclipse gateway is presenting many opportunities for your heart light to blossom to a new level, for more of your divine embodiment to come to the surface so that you're able to live with more bliss and love and joy in your life. And yes, it's no mistake that this new opportunity for embodiment is arising at the same time as much of physical 3D reality being shaken up, crumbling, and falling away. Don't hold on to what's trying to fall away. That only causes suffering. Accept and allow what is happening in the moment to be what is, and know that you can choose to harmonize with what is, to claim the blessings of light, of life, of spirit, of nature, of earth, of the divine that are available to you now. Flowing with love and bliss to consciously co-create blessings in your life amidst this eclipse gateway and beyond.
In a rapidly changing world, by definition, there are no maps. There can only be a compass. And this is true because of the following amazing lens that started this reflection: the paradoxical logic of strategy. The reason you can't have a map, the reason you can't have a strategy to deploy is that the system is dynamic, right? For every action, there is an equal and opposing reaction. So you can have a map that tells you where you're going to go, but that map is static and the world is dynamic. And so by the paradoxical logic of strategy, the minute you deploy a strategy, the system responds and adapts to that strategy, like organisms learning to fight against antibiotics. And so it's a fool's errand to try to make plans, to try to make maps that are accurately reliable. Eventually, by the paradoxical logic of strategy, all maps fall by the wayside. Evolution happens, disruption happens, the sidelining of all of our plans happens, and it is our capacity to practice resurrection that gets us through the looking glass. We must be willing to let go of the life we've planned so that we can live the life that is waiting for us, says Mr. Joseph Campbell. And so perhaps this is the lens, right? But for the grace of God go we of this moment. This is the leap of faith that we must take, right? This is the willing surrender and the willing acceptance and the enthusiastic embrace of a shift we didn't see coming, but that was as inevitable as every disruption that engenders transformation and innovation. It's just evolution. It's just what's happening. And so, by the paradoxical logic of strategy, perhaps we can stop trying to know and simply embrace the whole mystery with a little more equanimity and a little more grace. You know, this is how we take the road less traveled by, and that will make all the difference. This is it, man. This is the human story. This is how we break on through to the other side. Yeah, sit with that.
I realized that I was reacting to a lot of what is happening. And for some reason, I felt like there's something else going on here. And what I want to share with you is that I think from here moving forward, We need to start focusing on unity, connection, love, us all coming together rather than the separation. We're becoming aware of a lot of the stuff that was subconscious, some of it conscious, but we're becoming aware of it now so that we can then let it go. But I think that what is more important right now is that we focus on that unity, that connection, and that love.
So, a change is coming when you realize the equality in everything. Everything is the same. No human being can be better than another one. It's impossible. We are stardust, okay? Like the great Carl Sagan said, the nitrogen in your DNA, the calcium in your teeth, the iron in your blood, the carbon in your apple pies were all made from the interior of collapsing stars, deep divers. We are literally stardust. So start looking at people like stardust. So deep divers, a change is gonna come. But the change has to start with you first and foremost. I want you to ask yourself, am I contributing to the fire? Or am I becoming the water? Become the water, like the great Bruce Lee said, be the water, my friend. And that's how the change is gonna come. Stop giving your energy to the media, stop giving your energy to these politicians and take it back. You are the power, deep divers. You don't need the police force. When you have law and order within yourself. Oh my God, that's why I'm just saying, feels so good to be alive, baby. Can I get a hello there? Beautiful deep divers. I'm just, woo, breathing in that good ass prana, baby. The revolution will not be televised. The revolution will be internalized. We are all one, deep divers. Don't fall for it. Don't fall for the separation.
It's the need to try and tie this all together and make some kind of sense of it. I mean, what does a plant that heals wounds have to do with hallucinogens, and what do these things have to do with a global planetary crisis in the ecosystem, and what does that have to do with each of us? Well, to create an overarching metaphor that can connect all this together, I think what we have to do is think in terms of the exhaustion of our own cultural forms. I mean, that's what we're living through, is a global dying created by the exhaustion of our cultural forms and the vitality of the cultural forms that we see in these so-called primitive, I call them pre-literate people. As Nicole pointed out, they have nothing, but what they seem to have that we cannot seem to get a grip on is a kind of dynamic equilibrium with their environment and peace of mind in the felt experience of the moment. These are the two things we don't have. As a society, we cannot seem to make peace with nature. As human beings, as individuals, it's very hard for us to be at peace with ourselves. I mean, I consider my own life the search for peace of mind. Forget enlightenment. Forget shunyata, all this stuff. You know, just a little peace of mind would be a tremendous boon as far as I can see. And I think it's the task of the new shamans to take the metaphor of the jungle, which is a metaphor of tremendous wealth, tremendous variety, a tremendous outpouring of form and of energy and of potential fulfillment of various bifurcation patterns of flow, to take that and enrich our own lives with it. And the way this is done is by empowering the presence of experience. The main thing that you get with these so-called primitive, pre-literate people, and with people like Nicole, who have spent time in this situation, is they are in the moment. They know how to have fun. They know how to work. They know how to live. And the reason they understand this is because they are focused within the confines of the felt presence of experience. They do not live by abstraction. And abstraction is the knife poised at our hearts. We are so much the victims of abstraction that with the earth in flames, we can barely rouse ourselves to wander across the room and look at the thermostat. That's the level of disimpassioning that abstraction has laid upon us. Well, hopefully this weekend there will be passion. There will be an effort wherever there is abstraction to drag it down into the felt presence of the moment. I think basically what we are a kind of green anarchy, an effort to revivify social forms that have been atrophied in the West at least since the destruction of Eleusis, probably in most places thousands of years before that. This is our last chance. I have done the best I could in terms of trying to sift through all these options and, as a communicator, offer the best way out. And, I could only do my best. And so that's what you get. I can't preach scientism because I don't believe in it. I can't preach Buddhism because I can't understand it. The only thing I can preach is the felt presence of immediate experience, which for me came through the psychedelics, which are not drugs, but plants. It's a perversion of language to try and derail this thing into talk of drugs. There are spirits in the natural world that come to us in this way. And so far as I can tell, this is the only way that they come to us that is rapid enough for it to have an impact upon us as a global population.
So there's you could say two sides to the exploration. There's the energy body, where we're gently feeling the sensations and opening to them, just like you're doing. And when it moves, you notice it and you move your attention with it and you feel it. And when it changes, you just notice, oh, it's changing. But without any agenda or any concept that I'm doing something. That's the mind. Just to be the open space that allows the experience of the sensations. And then to observe the thoughts and remain as the observer, the watcher of the thoughts, and inquire deeper than that. What is it that's aware? I know I am, I know I exist. What is here before thoughts? And the ego mind doesn't want to investigate this, because it knows that when we investigate this, that's the end of the ego. It's losing its power over us. So it tries to sabotage the investigation. It doesn't want to look.
Mind will fractalize, project, and blame. The heart knows all is the same. The heart is this oneness, this unity, this freedom. Every moment is fresh. There is no right or wrong, good or bad. It is beyond all of that. Beyond all of it. You gotta let yourself off the hook and realize there's no hook. The hook's imagined. So, don't strategize life. Don't try to create your day with such grip. Have faith. Have faith in your heart energy. Have faith in your presence and your lucidity. And have faith in life, which is not separate from you. It is you. It knows what you need in every moment to awaken into the highest state of consciousness and vibration. And your ego does not have to like it. Your mind does not have to like it. And being a true heart-centered being is being authentic with your experience. I don't like this circumstance right now. That's okay. You can be conscious and say, I don't like what's happening. That's an opening. Instead of going, trying to suck it in and be happy with it. No, just be honest. Be honest. Be real. And through that transparency and openness, more light, which is you, reveals itself, because it's already here. You see, light, love, heaven, purity is here. But we must recognize we're living by expectation. We're living by memory of past experiences, which is painting over the kingdom that is here, you see. And it's not that we can even cover up heaven or cover up the true self. That's still dreamed and imagined. So what is here when we're not imagining? What is here when we're not projecting? What is here when we're not expecting? What is here without mind? But don't give this to your mind. Intuitively feel, intuitively recognize. Feel this through your heart space. Your heart is home. Your heart is what we call God. But God is not an object. It's formless awareness. It's presence. And it's here for you now as you. But you gotta be done with being a separate me. And you gotta like trust fall. Trust fall into the unknown. Trust fall into spirit. Trust fall into love. Trust fall into no expectation. And allow the purity of just presence, which is you, to guide you. Right? When we use words, it automatically goes into duality, you know? But it's all the same. Just different frequencies of consciousness. But who we really are is beyond all of that. Beyond the multidimensionality, beyond the dynamic consciousness. Pure awareness is what gives birth to all of this. So, observe your thoughts and know they are not you. Observe your emotions and know they are not you. You are nothing you perceive, but who or what is perceiving? Bring everything in, pull everything inward. Bring all the senses, all of the energy, all of your consciousness, and nestle it into your sacred heart. This is abiding as self. This is abiding as the true you. I'll see you in the heart. Have a beautiful day. Namaste.
If I think of my life as a class and what I've really learned, I've learned a few things. First, I'm aware that I'm a child of God. It's such an amazing understanding to think that the it, which made fleas and mountains and rivers and stars, made me. What I pray for is humility, to know that there is something greater than I. Then I have to know that the brute, the bigot, and the batterer are all children of God, whether they know it or not. And I'm supposed to treat them accordingly. And it's hard, and I blow it all the time.
Mongrel class of people!
I'd like everybody to think of a statement by Terence. The statement is, I am a human being. Nothing human can be alien to me. If you can internalize the least portion of that, you will never be able to say of an act, a criminal act, or I couldn't do that. No matter how heinous the crime, if a human being did it, you have to say, I have in me all the components that are in her or in him. I intend to use my energies constructively as opposed to destructively. If you can do that about the negative, just think what you can do about the positive. If a human being dreams a great dream, dares to love somebody, if a human being dares to be Martin King or Mahatma Gandhi or Mother Teresa or Malcolm X, if a human being dares to be bigger than the condition into which she or he was born, it means so can you. And so you can try to stretch yourself. So you can internalize homo sum humani nihila me alienum puto. I am a human being. Nothing human can be alien to me. That's one thing I'm learning.
It's this field that does everything for the human being. This field. And you experience this field when you really get there and transcend. This is transcendental consciousness. It's, there's so many names for this field. The Tao, Kingdom of Heaven, all these names for this one field, the absolute, totality. In Vedic language, this field is called Atma, is the individual here, and the same phenomenon happens with a group. Lots and lots of people, square root of 1% of a population. So, like I said, for France, 750 to 1,000 do the thing. A group, quadratically more powerful than the same number scattered about. And this is a thing, like my friend Dr. John Hagelin says, if you have 2 loudspeakers and they're separated, you have 1 volume, you put the 2 next to each other and you got the equivalent of 4 loudspeakers. You put 3, you've got suddenly the 9. It's called constructive interference. It's a real thing. A group, close, doing the program, advanced techniques. Day by day. Just like when you want to get electricity to the people, you build a power plant, generate that electricity, and they get it. And you want that power plant to stay. They got their computers running, their TVs running, the whole kitchen's running, and day by day, you're generating electricity. Day by day, you're generating dynamic peace. Beautiful thing. Human beings like a light bulb. And we enjoy that light inside, but we also radiate it. We affect our environment. Everybody knows that. You go into a room where there's been a bad argument, the argument's over, but you can feel that thing. You go into a room filled with felicite, bliss, and the power of that is so beautiful to be in. And this group radiates that. Side effect, negativity goes. Enmity and the enemy goes. Without trying. Unified field. That's our big friend. And this is all the thing tied to peace. It gets to the point where you couldn't hurt another human being. It would be like hurting yourself. This is the way it is supposed to be. It's not the way it is, but it would be so beautiful. But the key is there. This feeling, it just grows and it's real. It's much more real feeling than our world, which is pretty much an absurd joke when, somebody is blowing children's heads off in the name of peace. It's a sadness. It's the old way. And now there is a new way to real peace, and nothing to do with killing. And so it's reached a point where you just wouldn't ever think to hurt another human being. And you travel in real peace, you travel and you meet friends, not enemies. The light of unity destroys the enmity in an enemy, destroys negativity. There's no more enemy.
Pure awareness. I am Om.
Allow your attention to become fully present in this moment right now. Everything that you've experienced up until now, from the moment you were born, only exists as memory, which is thought. Everything you want and hope for your future only exists as imagination, which is thought. Take a moment to look at your experience right now and see for yourself if that is true. Is it possible to experience anything other than this moment? Now look at what is here in this moment. You may say, I am here, but what is this I? If you look, you can't find it, because it doesn't exist. It's only ideas you have about yourself. So what are you if you're not these ideas? If you're not these thoughts? Really look as though you're looking for the first time. What is it that's perceiving this moment? Can it be found? Is there any distance between you and that which perceives? What is here, that's always here. What is here, that never changes.
We've been programmed with a belief that if you have a good life and you die, you get a chance to go to heaven, which is what? Heaven is anybody's individual thing. I talk to you, you give me your definition of heaven, you listen to my definition, you listen to somebody else, they're all different. We all have creative vision. So heaven is a creative place. And I go, so what's relevant? I go, once I started to understand this stuff, first of all, I never believed in spirituality, but the science revealed using quantum physics and epigenetics that we are a field, an energy field playing through this body. What I learned through this is, first of all, there's no such thing as death of who we are. There's death of the body, but the body is like a virtual reality suit that an energy field that is different for each one of us is operating in this body. My self-receptors on my cells, which distinguish me as being different from you, respond to a different environmental signal than your self-receptor. So each of us is receiving like a broadcast that is running this biology. Consciousness is running the biology. Consciousness isn't physical, it's an energy. And I go, why is it relevant? Because the answer was this. The belief that if you do really well and you persevere, and when you die, you're going to go to this place called heaven. And I go, consider this, that we were born into heaven, that we came here to create. That's what we're doing. We're creating. And I say, when we're creating it right, heaven on earth is here. When we're creating it wrong, struggle is here. And all of a sudden I say, oh my God, don't wait till you die that you're going to go to heaven. This is it. This is where you came to create. What do you want to create? Love? Coronavirus? You can create a damn thing you want. This is creation place. But if you don't know that your creations are being controlled, then we become a victim of a world out of control. And yet we were the creators. We gave in to other people's beliefs. And then we now are creating not with our wishes and desires, we're creating with the program. Where's the program taking us right now? And the answer is fear, shutdown, loss of community, breakdown of the system. I go, we can learn or not. That's it. And this is a learning moment. Take your power back. You are beyond, power-wise, beyond any virus that ever existed. You are very powerful. Every human, and this is a fact, every human first 7 years is download a hypnosis. The brain of a child under 7 is in a lower vibrational frequency. When you put wires on a person's head, you read electroencephalograph, reading brain activity. A child below 7 has a lower vibration than consciousness. It's called theta. Theta is imagination. Oh, that's how kids play a tea party with mud pies, but to them it's a real thing. A kid rides a broom, it's a horse. That's theta, imagination. Theta is also hypnosis. And the idea is this: before you can become conscious, if you don't have any programs, what are you going to be conscious of? So nature makes the first 7 years. What kind of programs are required to live on this planet? I say, how do you get them? Theta is hypnosis. You just watch. You watch your parents, you watch your siblings, and your community, because you have to learn how many 100,000 rules. Think about it. Just to be a functional member of a family and a functional member of a community, there are rules. Teach an infant these rules. I say, oh, you don't have to. First 7 years, they observe it and just download it. People have beliefs from the family. Oh, you can't make it. Life's a struggle. Things are hard. Who do you think you are? And if that's the program you get, then 95% of the day you will sabotage yourself, because the programming, 95% of our life, this is a fact, comes from those programs in the subconscious. Every day, only about 5% of their life are you using conscious, which is creative. 5%.
So your life is being lived, even though you think you're living your life.
Exactly, and you don't see it because it's called subconscious, below conscious. And the Jesuits, for 400 years, they were boasting. People didn't understand. They say, give me a child until it's 7 and I will show you the man. They've been saying that for 400 years because they knew 7 years was the program period. And 95% of your life after that will be whatever that program is. Your life is a printout of your subconscious behavior. Oh, so you don't have to try and think about what happened. I just say, look at your life. The things you like that come into your life come in because you have a program that supports them. But anything you struggle with, work hard at, put a lot of effort into making it happen, why you're working so hard, inevitably, you have a program that doesn't support that conclusion and you're trying to override the program. So you don't need to do a lot of shrink and psychology stuff. You just look at your life and say, where am I struggling? Because wherever you're struggling, inevitably is a program in your subconscious that does not support that destination you've been looking for. The conscious mind is creative and can learn in any number of ways. Read a self-help book, go to a lecture, listen to this program, and conscious mind's going to get some awareness. And I go, yeah, but subconscious mind doesn't learn that way. I go, right, it doesn't. Subconscious mind learns in two fundamental ways naturally. Hypnosis, which is the first 7 years. And after age 7, how do you put new programs in? Repetition, practice. You want to drive a car, you didn't learn how by just getting in the seat and put the key in. You had to practice driving the car. You want to learn the alphabet. How many times did you go from A to Z? Try to go to A to Z before you can complete it. Once you completed it, you didn't have to go back and do it again. So 2 phases. You want to train the subconscious mind. Hypnosis, repetition. I like the last one because there's a new phrase that's bandied about called fake it till you make it. Meaning, if you're not a happy person, I say, you want to be a happy person? Then repeat all the time, I'm happy, I'm happy. I say, well, you don't look happy or anything. I say, no, who am I talking to? By repetition, I'm talking to subconscious. Okay. If subconscious gets, I am happy, and 95% of your life comes from that subconscious, there will be a point once the subconscious got, I am happy, you don't have to say it again.
Okay.
It'll be automatic.
And that's why we see people do affirmations and gratitude journals and stuff, because if you do that daily...
It's repetitive. That's the secret part. Putting a sticky note on the refrigerator is more like a suggestion, but it's not a repetition. So it doesn't work very well. But you have to do... Repetition is a habit. It's making habit. So you got to do something religiously in a sense of repeating it to make it work. If you don't like the program, you don't like the way it's turning out, well, then you can reprogram it and you could get the things you want. The movie The Matrix is not science fiction. It's a documentary. This is the whole story of The Matrix. Matrix, you've been programmed? Oh, we're going to take a red pill and get out of the program, okay? Falling in love is the equivalent of taking the red pill biologically. Scientists have studied what is called mind wandering. I said, what is mind wandering? I said, well, your conscious mind could be focused on a task, or your conscious mind could go off into think about things, okay? And the relevance about that is when the conscious mind is staying in the front, you're in absolute control, wishes, desires, what you want, conscious mind, creative, you're in control. But the moment your conscious mind takes off into a thought or starts thinking or whatever going on, it lets go of the wheel, the autopilot takes over, okay? So the idea is this: if your mind is wandering, then you're being run by the subconscious. And it turns out this is very negative. When your mind is straightforward in consciousness, you're controlling the vehicle. So I say, falling in love has been demonstrated biologically to be equivalent to the red pill because what it does is it keeps you what they call mindful, keeps you conscious. Look, you've been looking for this partner your whole life. They're now in front of your face. This is not the time to go thinking about things. It's time to be, oh, look what I got right here in front of me. And I say, well, think about it this way. Your life could suck every day. And then you meet this person and 24 hours later, it's heaven on earth. 24 hours later, oh my God, I'm so in love, Even the job's not so bad anymore and the food tastes great and the music is so much better and love. I go, what the heck happened? You had all of this negative, and then in 24 hours, you have this heaven on earth. And the answer was, it was taking the red pill. That's what falling in love is. At that moment, you stop playing the program. Now you're operating from conscious mind, which is creative, which by definition is wishes and desires. What the heck do you want from your life? If you answer that question, it's a creative answer, and by definition, it's conscious. So your wishes and desires are in your conscious mind. In a normal person's life, 5% of the day, you're moving toward that. 95% you're playing the program. You fall in love, 100, it was actually 90%, I think is the number, 90% from conscious mind. 90% of the day you are now operating from creative wishes and desires. I go, look, I said your life sucked all the way up, and then 24 hours of operating on wishes and desires and not playing the program turned earth into heaven for you at that moment. And then you go, well, how come the honeymoon doesn't last? I go, because inevitably you still have to think about things, your job, your chores, your requirements, what you have to do. And at some point, once you start thinking, then the conscious mind is shut off. And guess what shows up? All those behaviors in the subconscious mind that were negative, 70%. And your partner, remember, your partner and you fall in love same time, both of you operating from conscious mind with wishes and desires. And all of a sudden, you start thinking, and then this behavior shows up that was your mother, your father, whatever thing you learned. And your partner is like, where the hell did that come from? Who are you? Is a response. It's like, where did that come from? We've been in this honeymoon. I've never seen that behavior. If you would have played that behavior on the first date, maybe we wouldn't have a second date, but now it shows up. And I say, why did it show up? Because I stopped being mindful.
Okay. So how do you teach people to keep the honeymoon alive?
Is to change the subconscious program. and it's simple for reasoning is simple. Conscious mind, wishes and desires. Subconscious mind, program. Well, what if you took the wishes and desires and made those programs? Then guess what? You don't even have to think about it. You will automatically, 95% of the day, be playing behaviors to manifest those wishes and desires. Okay. So reprogramming the subconscious with wishes and desires means you don't even have to think about it. So when you fall in love, the cocktail of chemicals coming out of your brain are things that enhance your vitality, your life, make you healthier, happier, and joy. I go, the same person, if they open their eyes and see something that scares them, none of those love chemicals are going to come out of the brain. At that moment, stress hormones and inflammatory agents are going to be released by the brain. All of a sudden I say, well, then you change the chemical composition of the culture medium. I go, yeah. Result? The composition of the culture medium controls the fate of the cells. The composition of your blood controls the fate of your cells. The composition of your blood based on the picture in your mind. Change the picture, you change the chemistry. Almost everybody has the same wishes and desires. To be in love, to be happy, to be healthy, to be peaceful. That's a standard wish and desire of everybody. And if we all lived with those wishes and desires, this planet would change overnight. We would have harmony, we would have peace, we would have nature, community, environment. But until we change those subconscious programs, then we become victims of the program and not creators of our life. And when this is understood, then people could say, wait, I have a choice. I say, you do. You can play the programs you're playing, or you can rewrite those programs and take power back. And that's our destination.
Well, now really, when we go back then to falling in love, and say it's crazy, falling. You see, we don't say rising into love. There is in it the idea of the fall. And it goes back, as a matter of fact, to extremely fundamental things. That there is always a curious tie at some point between the fall and the creation. Taking this ghastly risk is the condition of there being life. You see, for all, the life is an act of faith and an act of gamble. The moment you take a step, you do so on an act of faith because you don't really know that the floor is not going to give under your feet. The moment you take a journey, what an act of faith. The moment you enter into any kind of human undertaking in relationship, what an act of faith. See, you've given yourself up. But this is the most powerful thing that can be done. Surrender. See, and love is an act of surrender to another person. Total abandonment. I give myself to you. Take me. Do anything you like with me. See? So, that's quite mad, because you see, it's letting things get out of control. All sensible people keep things in control. Watch it, watch it, watch it. Security, vigilance, watch it. Police, watch it. Guards, watch it. Who's going to watch the guards? So, actually, therefore, the course of wisdom, what is really sensible, is to let go, is to commit oneself, to give oneself up, and that's quite mad. So we come to the strange conclusion that in madness lies sanity. But when you fall in love, it's a much more serious involvement. You just cannot forget this person. You feel miserable when not in their presence. You're always yearning, let's get, see more of each other, let's get together, we're completely entangled. And then you see, you've actually, a kind of what I will call spiritual element has been introduced. Falling in love is a thing that strikes like lightning and is therefore extremely analogous to the mystical vision. We don't know how really people attain the mystical vision. But as yet we are not clear as to why it comes about. And if there is any method of attaining it, the best one is probably to give up the whole idea of getting it. But you see, it is completely unpredictable. And so it is, in that way, like falling in love, capricious, and therefore crazy. But if you should be so fortunate as to encounter either of these experiences, it seems to me to be a total denial of life to refuse it.
Things. And I'm constantly doing energetic clearings because it's one thing to be connected to another, it's another thing to be attached. And what a lot of empaths do is we accidentally attach because we don't realize that internal boundary we need to have. So what we can do and what that looks like to change is notice when you're talking with someone and you're feeling into their experience so much that you start to almost lose your sense of grounding into them. You think that you need to attach to them rather than connect with them to feel a connection. So when you feel yourself starting to go too far, put this little barrier in between you where I can hear you and feel you and validate you, but I don't have to become you. Try it, you guys. It's so fun to, you don't have to shut down, you just have to pull it back and notice that you have to become more of the observer rather than the attacher, right? So I want you guys to try that. But there's a better way that they can feel better, and I call it mutual enlightenment. When I leave a session, I feel great and they feel great because together we have transmuted things. I haven't taken it on and then you get to feel better. Neither one of us take it on. We just put it out into the universe. We release by not attaching but connecting. It's a much more healing way to be involved with other people and keep your sense of self. So when you start to feel yourself being pulled, come back and start to observe. Just watch them, see them, hear them, feel them, but don't become them.
that's what I mean. The dissolution of the assumption of permanence. Me, my existence, my women, my food, my children, my weapons, my land, my this, my that, all of that is seen as a fiction. That's why primitive people are so amused by us and our concerns and our clutching, because they know easy come, easy go. And if we could learn this one thing, this is what the plants are trying to teach, I think, that the border between life and death, between being and not being, between me being me and me being you, is so trivial and so arbitrary that it can only be seen as the outer iridescence on the real reality within. This is the secret of a happy life, I think. But I saw it. I saw what it was. And what it is it's a coming to terms with impermanence. And that gives you authenticity that nothing can take away. And courage and presence in the moment and humor and survivability. And if you hold instead the inviolate pearl of that which cannot be destroyed, everything becomes your enemy. Time becomes your enemy. Space becomes your enemy. And you are doomed to that Ahab fate, because, hey, it's bigger than any of us, so you can't push the river.
I invite you to join me in shifting your awareness within. Take a deep breath. As you breathe, relax, allow your mind to clear and your heart to open. As I now call in and forth, beloved source of all that is, Holy Spirit, thank you. Thank you for so many blessings in my life. Thank you for your infinite presence of divine abundance. And thank you for now helping me to know and open to experience the truth of unfailing abundance that is constantly radiating from Source within, flowing out. I ask that you cleanse, resolve, alchemize, and transform every level and layer of my being. Help me to open to embody the divine consciousness I am, that is forever manifesting as the true nature of abundance through all that is. Please cleanse, clear, and resolve all limiting beliefs, programs, and patterns in me, keeping me out of alignment, disconnected, and out of touch with divine source and the abundant possibilities for my life. Shine the light of divine presence through my energy fields and across the lines of time. Cleanse and resolve any blockages, past traumas, or distortions present in me or in any of my ancestors. Cleanse any residues of limiting belief, vows or decrees of poverty, and beliefs in lack and separation, blocking me off from the abundance that is your true divine nature. Thank you for helping me to open to this flow, this presence, this truth of divine abundance within me. Thank you. I love you. And so it is.
To worship something beyond ourselves. And that's what's changing. That's what's changing in our DNA. This is the time that this is the time of the great change, the mutation. And in this 19th gene key, in all humans, this is changing. And because it's changing in humans, it's changing at all levels throughout creation, because you can't have one isolated change or mutation. It doesn't exist, because everything in the cosmos is interconnected, everything. So a great change, really, it means a great change. It means throughout the chain of the cosmos. So as humans are changing, we are just one small part of the change. So the shift is from worship to embodiment. And this is why our old religions, our tribal religions, based on worship, are declining, are falling away. And this new paradigm, spiritual paradigm, is emerging, all because of this change in this 19th gene key. And the gift here is the gift of sensitivity, and it is this sensitivity to the transdimensional realities. So as we awaken as a species, then we awaken to all these different dimensions and layers, as our new awareness centers, the belly especially, as the solar plexus opens up, as it truly opens up our potential as a species to live a cosmic interdimensional life, because of the shift in our DNA, the shift of our functioning, of our awareness. So this has all kinds of implications. And one of the most beautiful ones, I think, is that because in a way our religions began here in this gene key, because they began here, the ancient path of the shamans, the first human religions began in, they say in the Tungus people, for example, in Siberia. They say that the first primal religions began there. We don't know, but it's this ancient shamanic way. And the shamanic ways have been kept alive through our indigenous peoples. And we have always looked, in the modern age, we tend to look upon the indigenous belief systems as less evolved intellectually than ours, because of the way they use magical thinking. So they think about, the way that the indigenous people tend to see life in the universe is through a magical lens. And we see that as superstitious. Our projection on them is that they have all these superstitions and these rituals and things that we don't, and we've grown and evolved beyond that. That's how we see it. And yet what I find beautiful is that now we get to integrate those gifts. We get to honor our ancestors and our indigenous people by integrating their view into the modern holistic transcendent view. So we don't leave it behind. I'm thinking of, Ken, you might know Ken Wilber's system of integral theory. And what you see is that down at the sort of lower levels of primal religion are this magical thinking and superstition and stuff. But then as you get to the top, near the top, to these teal and turquoise colours and stuff, which represent the higher ways of viewing, higher, interdimensional mind, it's transcend and include. It includes. So this is the beautiful thing, is that we get to include this way of looking at the cosmos that is rooted in the earth, in our ancestors and in the indigenous tribes. Even today, we get to integrate that into our new spiritual paradigm. We don't leave it behind and move on to some other view. We integrate it. We transcend and include. And this is so powerful. The people that have done this quite well are the Tibetans, actually, because the Tibetans, they integrated their Bon tradition, which is a shamanic tradition, into their Buddhist tradition. And so they end up with a very colourful, slightly crazy in a way, tantric Buddhism, version of Buddhism, that's very alive with it's filled with all these deities and rituals, and some of them are quite obscure and, they're very colourful. But in the new view, we get to integrate all worldviews, not just the Buddhist, but all. So that includes these ancient traditions, and that's where the 19th gene key comes. Really, this transition is really important. I call it the art of magical thinking, because it's to look at the universe through magical eyes. And this can be easily misunderstood, because there's a distinct difference between fantasy and delusion and magical thinking. Magical thinking is to be able to use the right brain, to be able to use the creative imagination, but to use also the intuition at the same time to guide us. So we think about things, we allow ourselves to think about things like a child thinks about things, but from within an objective view. So we never identify. That was the difference between, the old superstitions, is that in the superstitious, as it was in the old day, you identified with the object. So the magical universe, you identified with it absolutely, and therefore you became, in a way, entangled with it. But with the new view, you don't identify with it. You use the creative imagination in a magical way, but you integrate that into this higher aspect, knowing that you're none of it. We draw on the Eastern tradition of the unity consciousness, the non-dual perspectives, for example, but we bring in this other component of the right brain, of the magical universe, where we can play. We're more playful. This is a more playful approach. It really absorbs the creative impulse. Some of those very pure non-dual traditions, they don't really absorb the creative impulse. They're not creative. They don't, because they come from the Eastern mindset. They're very pure in that sense. But when you bring in the Western mind as well, you have this kind of amazing confluence of all the archetypes that get built into that. So you end up with a completely different spirituality, a rich spirituality that, is playful. So that's what this 19th gene key, I'll give you some examples, right? When human beings are just one chain of evolution. We have many parallel evolutions. And one of them is the Davic evolution, which I've mentioned already. The Davic evolution is a subtle layers of life force that surrounds all the living creatures and beings on our planet, right? So the plants and the minerals and the animals and the birds and the insects and all those. That is the inner world of the shaman. Is to interact with all these things, the crystals, the stones, the elements of the stars, everything. For that is the playground of the shaman. The underworld, going into the underworld, down into the psychotropic realm, and then pulling in insights and then weaving it all together, and bringing magic alive. true magic, where the magic is to be able to use the art of correspondences and to be able to see what everything corresponds to, and therefore to gain great illumination through that as a spiritual path. So the 19th really brings this shamanic path alive, but it also the shift in it propels us into a new kind of spirituality. So the example is, if you take the 5 elements, you have, earth, water, air, fire, and which one is it? Earth, water, air, fire, and ether. Right? Ether is the 5th element. The ether is the transcendent one, and the etheric plane is the plane in which many of these other Davic dimensions live on. So take like elves, right? The notion of elves, from Tolkien, from the Lord of the Rings, right? You really consider like the people that wrote those books. There are entire languages that people have discovered, or created out of the imagination, and we believe that we've created those. We actually believe, and those wonderful fantasy books that people have read, we believe that we've created those out of our imagination. And that's one way of looking at it. Another way of looking at it is that they already existed. That actually those fantasy novels that have been written, or those fantasy books like The Lord of the Rings and all those names and things and those languages, they are the history of the elf realm. And someone has just had that cross-species gate that's enabled them, maybe that gene key, that 19, that's just enabled them to transcribe those things, thinking that that's imagination, and it is. But what if it's actually real? What if fantasy is real, is reality? This is where fantasy and reality come together. That's magical thinking, the art of magical thinking. Do you see what I mean? Like, it's very subtle, because you mustn't get lost in identification. But what you realize is, like, take the elf world, I can't believe I'm talking about the elf world, but like, there is a parallel evolution to us, and it lives on a subtle dimension. We can't see it, but it's parallel to the human. Can't see them, not generally. Some people can, and there are times when there's crossovers. This is dictated particularly, by the moon cycles. The moon, as it waxes and wanes, opens and closes portals between the realms, particularly between the human and the Deva realms. Always has done. This is why magic and witchcraft and folklore and Wicca and all those things, they use the knowledge, the secret knowledge, to make the crossing over points, to bring information across. They can be used for all kinds of, highly dodgy ways and subverted, in all kinds of ways. But essentially, there are parallel evolutions, and they exist in different time realms from us, different time realms, right? So time is key. Like, so those elf beings that we call elves, we kind of see them as elves and we humanize them as elves, right? They are, they exist in a different time than us, right? And their version of time is different from ours. So the elf realm, the Deva realm of nature spirits, for example, of those elemental beings, for them, they are relatively immortal, so they have a different time. Human beings, our time span is like, our lifespan is of 100 years or so. It's like incredibly quick. But in that realm, lives are incredibly long compared to ours. But they, because, so that, yeah, do you see what I mean? I'm playing in this realm. So you have these legends of elves falling in love with humans and humans falling in love with elves, right? And crossing over. And then this great longing because the human lifespan is so short and the elf one is so long. So you have great sadness as well and longing woven between our realms. And all these stories emerge and these myths and fables emerge because of these crossing over points. And sometimes you get elves or elvic beings or Davic beings that incarnate, half incarnate into humans. So you get humans who are, half of them is literally in that other world and half of them is in this world, you know, and you get all these combinations. It's a very rich playground, right? And this is magical thinking. What I'm doing here is magical thinking, right? It's opening up possibilities, you know, boundless possibilities for understanding subtle realms. This is what the 19th gene key does. It understands all the subtle realms, but you have to think in a different way. You have to open up into the realm of fantasy, but you have to realize it's not necessarily fantasy, that fantasy and reality are very interconnected in a way that we cannot yet encompass. In the wider interdimensional mind, there's no original thought. Everything already exists. Everything. You know, our imagination does not invent anything. It already exists. Whatever we think we've invented, it already exists in some other form. But we just bring it down into a human realm. You know, and the level of our genius is how open we are to those things. You know, to that causal plane, you know, to these subtle dimensions. So, you know, particularly when I launch in the coming years this new system, the Dream Arc, which opens up this whole realm of magical thinking so that we can begin to penetrate and pierce these other realms using the power of our creative imagination and bring it alive and bring information across the threshold of these parallel evolutions. You know, we can open up to the old deities and the old gods and the old names and the old places, and it's all about the earth and Gaia, because everything, you know, so much in this. It's like I don't know when to stop. Like there are places where these portals open and close, these mystical places, ancestral places in the earth. And there are times as well when they open, because it's all about time and place, where the memory is encoded. It's encoded in the stones, it's encoded in place, in sanctuary. You know, there are memories held in certain places in the earth, you know, and they open at certain times. And if we are thinking magically, we can be drawn to those places at those times, and we can unlock some of those secrets, and we can become, you know, non-dual shamans, really. Like the ultimate spiritual journey is to bring together all these different spiritual modalities and paths. So the purity of the non-dual perspective of the deep Eastern, you know, paths of Buddhism, you know, of Advaita, those incredible pure paths. And we get to bring in the wealth of the creative imagination. We bring that in, and the two together, they create a new paradigm, a new spiritual realm, you know, which is infinite and in terms of its adventures. And this is why, you know, I've been in my incarnation series, in my rebirth series, in my, you know, reincarnation series, I've been like suggesting that we don't fall for this, you know, almost this, there's a spiritual mistake, you know, there's this error where the incarnation is an error that we've fallen into, and we have to escape. You know, we have to escape the Maya and the illusion, but actually we don't have to escape it. We have to play in it. We have to become awake, and then we get to play in it. You know, becoming awake and then leaving it for some higher dimension, that's not the future path. The future path is to play in it, to explore the realms. That's why we're here, to explore. We are journeyers. We are immortal, eternal voyagers of consciousness. Each soul, each separate soul within the panoply of multiple souls. You know, and we're all one, but we're also creators. You know, we're gods and goddesses. And this is where magical thinking, like from the ancestors, from our indigenous people, suddenly comes alive again within this new framework. And then we can honor them instead of pushing them aside as like, those were the old ways. No, those old ways are so powerful, but they have to be brought forwards now, you know, and understood and woven into a new paradigm. You know, this is the magic of the 19th gene key. You know, in the city of sacrifices, we have to let go of all the old ways and the new ways, and then bring the whole lot into a new world, a new way of being, where freedom is at the core. It's the freedom to explore. It's the freedom not to have all these, this is how it's got to be spiritually, you know, you've got to keep things pure. You know, you've got to have one lineage only and stay with your lineage, which I respect. And the new way is all lineages, is understanding that all lineages have one source. And like a rainbow, you know, of the rainbow of colours of all the lineages, and seeing where they cross-connect and cross-pollinate. This is our playground, to explore that and not to get lost in it. That's going to be the key. That's why we have to do our groundwork. That's why in Gene Keys, I have laid out all the groundwork. You have to deal with your emotional wound. You have to deal with your, you know, your negative thinking, your self-worth issues, all this stuff with the wound and suffering. You have to deal with it all, right? And then you're ready to play in this wider field. And then you're ready, but you can't do it otherwise. That's why in the order of how the Gene Keys is coming about, you know, these higher realms, these magical realms come later, after we've done the wound work, the shadow work, you know, because there's a higher path. And, you know, Gaia, you know, the ring of Gaia, this codon ring that contains the 19th gene key, Gaia contains all the secrets, you know, all the hidden secrets, and they're all cracking, you know, they're all opening now. But believe me, you need to do the groundwork before you can move to the higher level, so that you don't get fixated on the magical thinking. You know, this is my caution as well, because I've opened up this box, you know, this chest of marvels, and there are many people in the sort of new age that get lost down these corridors of fantasy. And if you haven't done your groundwork in your body, in your health, you know, in your relationships, then you have no business being in these magical realms. No business. And you will just get lost, and you won't unlock the true power. You know, you won't be able to flourish. Your health will always forestall you. You'll find that the wealth and the prosperity doesn't come to you because you haven't done the groundwork. So make sure you do your groundwork. And in Gene Keys, this means do the golden path. Come and voyage into the golden path. In there are all the teachings that you need in order to clear the way so that this magical thinking can be put to use. So the caution is not to be tempted too soon to go into these realms. But also the invitation is to explore them and play with them. So I leave that with you for the moment. Just the things to contemplate about this magical 19th gene key and how it is going, how it is changing us, and how it will open up new pathways and a whole new spirituality that is filled with adventure and boundless light and possibility. And once again, humanity gets to be a child, an innocent child running through the meadows of life, bounding, exploring, and opening up beautiful chests full of treasure, and that the imagination, the creative imagination holds. So it's a gleeful, beautiful time that is coming our way. Make sure you do your groundwork first.
Out of the night that covers me, black as the pit from pole to pole, I thank whatever gods may be for my unconquerable soul. In the fell clutch of circumstance, I have not winced nor cried aloud. Under the bludgeonings of fate, my head is bloody, but unbowed. Beyond this place of wrath and tears looms but the horror of the shade. And yet, the menace of the years binds and shall bind me, unafraid. It matters not how straight the gate, how charged with punishment the scroll. I am the master of my fate. I am the captain of my soul.
You cannot shake hands with a clenched fist. Let us sacrifice our today so that our children can have a better tomorrow. The most difficult thing is the decision to act. The rest is merely tenacity. The fears are paper tigers. You can do anything you decide to do. You can act to change and control your life. And the procedure, the process, is its own reward. Do not mind anything that anyone tells you about anyone else. Judge everyone and everything for yourself. Learning never exhausts the mind. Lord, make me an instrument of thy peace. Where there is hatred, let me sow love. Good judgment comes from experience, and a lot of that comes from bad judgment. No act of kindness, no matter how small, is ever wasted. It is far better to be alone than to be in bad company. If you cannot do great things, do small things in a great way. Permanence, perseverance, and persistence in spite of all obstacles, discouragements, and impossibilities. It is this that in all things distinguishes the strong soul from the weak. Keep your face always toward the sunshine, and shadows will fall behind you. Ever tried, ever failed? No matter. Try again, fail better. Spread love everywhere you go. Let no one ever come to you without leaving happier. The pessimist complains about the wind. The optimist expects it to change. The realist adjusts the sails. Being entirely honest with oneself is a good exercise. Life's most persistent and urgent question is, what are you doing for others? What we achieve inwardly will change outer reality. Don't judge each day by the harvest you reap, but by the seeds that you plant. When one door of happiness closes, another opens. But often We look so long at the closed door that we do not see the one that has been opened for us. Honesty is the first chapter in the Book of Wisdom. How wonderful it is that nobody need wait a single moment before starting to improve the world. Go confidently in the direction of your dreams. Live the life you have imagined. Always remember that you are absolutely unique, just like everyone else. The only thing necessary for the triumph of evil is for good men to do nothing.
As long as we are disparate entities, there will be hierarchies of control. That seems obvious. But it seems as though we are playing with the idea that we may not be disparate entities, or that we may be only provisionally disparate entities. We are a peculiar creature. As a mass phenomenon, we're somewhat like a slime mold. We have a life cycle where part of our life cycle we appear to be completely separate individuals. But apparently, if you view our development over the past few centuries, we're entering into some aggregation phase, triggered by pheromones spread through technology. And we are beginning to create some kind of a superorganism. And the fear of some people is that once inside this superorganism, we will be forced into a permanent status as a sub-level of the hierarchy. In other words, you will have to give up your individuality and you will just become a kind of liver cell or brain cell or something in this organism. But I don't think this is the case. I think we have the unique ability to combine these two modes of existence. This is why we have this notion of society and the private reality of the individual. And probably in the domain of society, there will always be forms of, I don't want to say control, but management of the distribution of commodity. The idea, I think, is to empower this other dimension, to spend as much time as possible in the individual free-swimming, free agent mode. In other words, not to see membership in society as a goal and a value to be conserved, but to see it as a necessary evil. You know, we need social organization, but in minimal doses. And when we go on a bender of addiction to social normative behaviors, then you get a psychic epidemic like National Socialism, where people voluntarily abandon their individuality to act in concert with some kind of mass impulse. This is extremely evolutionarily retrograde. It's not what we want to do. So I guess what I'm pleading for is an enlightened form of alienation, and not simply an emotionally driven alienation, but a strategically driven alienation. The alienation can be used not to create neurosis, but to attain freedom. Creative alienation. Alienation that embraces itself as the source of inspiration. Nobody ever said it was going to be comfortable to be a human being and to ride one of these bodies from the cradle to the grave. I mean, it's an uncomfortable, but I maintain manageable situation. but you have to have the lights on. You have to have your emotional responses in order, your intellectual responses in order. You have to have garnered some sense of how we got to this situation, and you have to have some sense of the tools available to transform it.
I believe that would end a great deal of conflict because, let's face it, there are many, many cultures, many traditions, many ways of identifying. And whilst I do believe in the universal, while I do believe in an essential oneness that abides in all of us, that we are all an expression of that, it's clear that different identities have been granted different privilege, power, and other identities have been exploited. And so to create new communities based on the values of different tribal or cultural identity, that's very, very exciting. That doesn't mean to say that there couldn't be sort of rather more cozy jam-making communities, not just Black Flag, Antifa type communities or other extreme, and even the word extreme, extreme compared to what I think it's a very interesting and exciting moment, and I can see why Dia is agitated by it, because this is the heart of conservatism. And what does conservatism mean? Conservatism means keep shit the same. Don't let stuff change radically. Protect the interests of the powerful. Do not allow resources and the ability to choose to drift into new communities. All of these views be accommodated in a single society. They can't be. They would, why be able to set up his own Fox World autonomous community for all the Fox folk? I think that's what freedom means. That you can have over here a religious community, over here communities based on sex, gender identification, over here. You can do what you want. That's what I believe. And I think that if you wanted to have Fox World, you could have it. But the problem is that we're all living in Fox World to a degree. This is an inversion of the previous situation. Seattle is interesting because we're only members of our nation if we say we are. If we don't feel that we are benefiting from the conditions of our nation, that old refrain of why don't you go back to where you come from, well, that now is being reversed. It's why don't you claim these spaces for yourself? Why don't you set up your own communities? Why don't you exempt yourself from taxation and law? Why don't you establish conditions that are amenable to you? And in fact, why don't you? Why don't all of us? Why don't we create communities that are reflective of our values? Why don't we respect that some people might want to run communities one way, others in an entirely different way, and as long as they're not impeding on one another's freedom, what problem is there with leaderless, autonomous collectives? Could this be happening in schools, hospitals, workplaces, communities, new laws? Of course there'll be challenges when it comes to huge issues such as medicine, justice, etc. But these things could be derived from the community and established by the people that are affected by them. What's clearly happened is that for too long people have felt oppressed and persecuted under institutions that they fund through taxation, that they live under but don't feel protected or served by, to quote back the US police maxim at itself. What a curious and exciting time this is. I wonder where this is all going to lead.
The guy was a constant pot user. He was constantly doing psychedelics. And
Brilliant talker. He would have a podcast now, right?
Oh, for sure.
It would be amazing.
Yeah, for sure. I'd promote the shit out of it. Terence McKenna, a theory called the stoned ape theory.
Pleasure to be here.
Human beings were experimenting with psilocybin mushrooms.
That's absolutely correct.
Well, fungus in general is a freaky organism.
Yes, we are an ape with a symbiotic relationship to a mushroom, and that has given us self-reflection, language, religion, and all the spectrum of effects that flow from these things.
Wow, it's just such a strange concept.
That's right, and DMT is also a product of endogenous human metabolism.
When you look at the DMT experience and you look at its effect on the human mind, how much of you subscribes to the idea that what we're looking at is some sort of a chemical gateway?
It's interesting that the most intense of the hallucinogens, DMT, which you mentioned, are the ones which are most closely related to our own brain chemistry.
That this is some sort of a pathway to a nearby dimension or to something that's around us all the time, but we just don't have access to with normal neurochemistry?
There are many chemical compounds in nature which are psychoactive, but a much narrower spectrum of these compounds are truly what we call psychedelic or mind manifesting.
Yeah, I mean, I've never done it, but I know that people who do Kundalini yoga have apparently reported trip-like experiences that are very similar to a real DMT flash. So the mind has this ability to do this on its own.
The one thing that is not stressed in Hinduism as it is exported to the West is the immense reliance on cannabis. Hashish, ganja.
Whatever that DMT experience is, that this is something that your brain has the ability to travel to.
Toads have been found which do secrete DMT-like compounds.
Wow.
I feel that potentially psychedelic drugs could be for psychology what the telescope became for the science of astronomy.
You had that fantastic joke. It was a talk about that this monk had practiced the city of levitation. Do you remember this one?
Yes.
And that the Buddha came to town and he said, for the last 20 years I've practiced the city of levitation and I can now walk on water. And the Buddha said, yeah, but the ferry's only a nickel.
That's right.
Thank you very much for coming in here, man.
It was a pleasure.
I just gotta say before this, I just saw a video someone put together of 2 interviews of you, and they're like talking to each other. It's like Dr. Jordan Peterson versus Peter Jordanson. Have you seen that?
Yes, I know about that.
Absolutely hilarious. I laughed my head off. It was so funny.
There's no shortage of comical material being generated about me online.
Yeah, the left definitely is saying everything is.
Well, it's a good thing to see that comedy as far as I'm concerned, because when things get so serious, that people can't make jokes about them, then you know that they've gone astray badly. And I've watched the sort of memes that have been satirizing me and so forth right from the beginning of this, and mostly they've stayed good-natured and humorous, and my sense is that that's kind of it's a large-scale indication that I'm more or less on the proper line, and if you respond to that with a certain amount of humor, then the humor stays funny. It never degenerates into something that's particularly vicious. It's a good thing to watch.
In a lot of ways, though, with the left, comedy is dead. The politically correct agenda, they hate comedy and they hate jokes.
Yeah, well, that's part of the reason. That's a dangerous thing, right? When comedians are under fire, when they're afraid to come to campuses and so forth, that's not a good thing. That's a canary in the coal mine scenario. Yeah, so. I bloody love bread pudding with caramel and ice cream, which is quite delicious. Put salt on it and throw it in the dehydrator, so that works pretty well. Yep. Cook that up, cut it into small pieces and fry it up till it's crispy. It's like, I'm gonna carry beef jerky with me, which we make. I'm gonna add mushrooms next because maybe I could eat them. Yep. So, part of the reason that I wrote this book, and it's a brilliant book, arguably the greatest work of nonfiction of the 20th century. Yeah, it's in the top 10 anyways. This is 12, excuse me. This is from 12 Rules for Life. Rule 4 is compare yourself to who someone else is today. So imagine that, that's not so good. Why not? Really, do we need an explanation for that? Well, what do you mean by that? First of all, poorly written at best, and showed a very poor grasp of life. Second of all, you don't know what the hell you're talking about. What makes you think you just don't hate the successful? The problem is that it's envy. Well, guess what? I've had 3 affairs in the last year and they've all been successful. I haven't got caught. Aren't I a good guy? They were usually extremely attractive, they were extremely intelligent, they were extremely driven. It's like, cool, a lot of these opportunities come. I've had opportunities that are coming at me at a rate that doesn't allow me to think them through as much as I could optimally. What the hell? It's not okay. Really, it's appalling. It's appalling. Why? First of all, there's a noble way of being that allows you to exist properly despite that, and also not to make it worse. There's no point in you betraying your future self to gratify your present self. It's a stupid game. Second of all, that's what you do with your wife. It's a reciprocal arrangement. Don't forget, kid, that what you're trying to do here is to be bright and chipper and entertaining and intelligent and sort of glitzy, and that's funny, and it's kind of cool, and it's interesting, and it's edgy, and all of that. It puts that facade of momentary charisma on you, and if you don't play that out, you actually fail. Look, there's heavy temptations to play those sorts of games. I understand that, but I decided a long time ago that I would rather not play that game. I think that it's possible that we could make the world better. No! What the hell are you doing? That's not what you're supposed to be doing. First of all, some losers lose all the time, which is the side you occupy, say, is that no one invites you out, and all the women are rejecting you. Who's got the problem? It's not all the women. Well, the thing is, like most things, it's complicated. So... Yeah, all the women are rejecting you? Right. It's you. And there's just chance associated with that sometimes. What, do we want to play that game? Yeah, this is a bad game. To hell with this. What are you going to do? I'm not going to help make it better. But someone as insufficient as you might be able to manage it. This is no time to whine about it. I'm not going to get all guilty and lose. I'm going to get all cruel and win. How are you going to compete? And the answer is, you're not. You have to accept the fact that you're not in very good shape. The goal that you could attain isn't very glorious. You know, your persona doesn't shout intellectual. Screw you. Every night you go home and congratulate yourself on what a genius you are. You're a dimwit, you're not a genius. It's like, you should feel good about who you are. It's like, no, you shouldn't. Why should you feel good about who you are? Well, look, I've been doing some working out, but not a lot. And I've actually gained musculature. I'm stronger, I can swim better, and my gums are in perfect shape. Right there. Something impressive to behold. Stop telling lies that you know to be lies. Now, and you have your reasons, you know, terrible parenting, abuse, all of those things. Tough luck for me, but I could lift 50 pounds. No, I don't think so. That's just too much. No, it's not. 50 pounds, it's like, well, do it. We don't need to address that issue. No wonder you don't want to be humiliated. You absolute son of a bitch. This is bloody well driving me crazy. That's really entertaining.
thank you. I will see you again, perhaps soon, but always in the present moment.